I'm awake. All right, good afternoon for the the Select Board meeting for Tuesday, April 4th, 2023 at 4 p.m. Call the meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, we'll be heading to executive session. Mr. Clark, you want to take us through the...
Mr. Chairman, pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations and conducting collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with firefighters, superior officers, clerical, DPW, dispatchers, patrol officers, police chief, deputy police chief. Vote to go in to close executive session meeting and return to open session afterwards. David Sheedy, aye.
Peter Spigone, aye.
Carol Julius, aye.
Thank you.
I'll see you shortly. Grab that second cup of coffee.
Welcome back to the Tuesday, April 4th, 2023 Board of Selectmen meeting. Open forum, is there anyone here? Anyone? Anyone? Bueller?
There's a couple of people in back there.
Seeing nobody in the room. We're closed open forum. Action items?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to review and vote on ARPA applications submitted by East Bridgewater School District to hire additional, I believe it's mental health counselors in the amount of $300 each year for 2 years.
Second.
Motion is made in second. Discussion?
This is one of those, the ARPA money that we receive from the federal government that can be used for mental health purposes. It's also a money that cannot be continuous, so the $300 for next year and the year after. After that, that money is no longer, a part of the ARPA, so if needed, if these mental health counselors still have to be brought on board, then that would become a part of their operating budget for 2025.
Right. So we're splitting this up for 2 years, right? It's
Yes.
$300,000 each year?
$300,000
For 2 years.
yes.
All right, yeah. Yeah, so there's a need obviously right now, so we'll take advantage of that need, or allow the schools to take advantage if we vote to pass this. And then, as David says, they'll have to figure out their operating budget in the third year and then thereafter. So I think everybody understands that. Carol, you have any?
Yeah, nope, I agree with all
Okay.
that.
All right, any further discussion? Charlie, you have anything you want to add, or?
No, I think you've hit everything that needs to be said. You know, we're proving it. It's within the wheelhouse of ARPA.
Yep.
It is operating, obviously, but nevertheless, it's in the wheelhouse. However, but as with any operating budget, or not operating budget, but non-capital, let's put it that way.
Yep.
If the department wants to continue it after the ARPA funding has been used up, they're going to have to find the money one way or the other, in the sense of either in their own budget, or they're gonna have to come back to the town with a budget with an increase.
I agree.
And the town will have to make a decision whether this is a priority versus priorities, even within the school department, for that matter, let alone other departments.
Okay. All right, that being said, motion is made in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so moved.
Action item number 2. Can this be as printed, Charlie?
It's for,
No, I know what's.
yeah. Do you want me to read it?
No, I can read it, that's fine.
I feel like you have to read
It's
it.
a lot of words.
Yeah, I hate,
Maybe we'll alternate sentences.
All right, go back and forth.
yeah, dealing with the school building authority, I think it's better to
Right.
read the whole thing.
And then we have to get the letter certified by the town clerk and then send it over to them.
Thank you. Can I read that?
Mhm.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Having convened in an open meeting on April 4th, 2023, prior to the SOI submission closing date, the Board of Selectmen of East Bridgewater, in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinances, have voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority the statement of interest form dated April 14, 2023, for the central school located at 107 Central Street in East Bridgewater, Massachusetts, which describes and explains the following deficiencies in the priority categories, for which the application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future for a major renovation and in addition to Central Elementary School, and hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting this statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of the grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits to the East Bridgewater School District to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority.
Second.
Amen.
Good job.
All right, motion made second. Further discussion? I don't think we need anything, right? Pretty
Just,
self-explanatory.
it's one of the steps in the process. We're working with the Massachusetts School Building Authority. They're very technical oriented, in the sense that they're very, very specific about what each community has to provide. One of these motions from the board is one of them.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, we are going to pass over action items 3 and action item 4. Now I'll make a motion to vote on settlement for clerical union grievance for overtime.
Second.
So to review, what happened was, after a grievance filed, wasn't formal grievance procedure, what it was basically a question based on federal and state laws in terms of wages for overtime and also use of compensatory time. And that, they didn't invoke the grievance because grievances have to be filed within a certain number of days of an event or incident. In this case, you can go back a couple of years and question whether the wages paid out are the correct amounts. We had 3 offices where this was effective. For the town clerk's office, the number of overtime hours was not calculated correctly, in that the town clerk staff was there working at, for instance, early election voting, town meeting days, election days, things like that, and working overtime. And so the proper amount of overtime hours was not put on their time cards, time sheets correctly. So the town agreed that that was the case and will pay the necessary overtime. For the building and planning office, you had staff that was earning compensatory time. Compensatory time is there instead as an option instead of overtime, in that you may end up with an overtime situation, but under the union contract, you can decide that you would like to take it as compensatory time, which is, if you work an hour, let's say the planning board meeting goes beyond 8 o'clock, goes to 9 o'clock. Well, you can take that hour that normally would be paid at overtime from 8 till 9, and say, instead, I would like an hour and a half of straight time of paid leave. So, instead of leaving at 4:30 on the next day or on Tuesday, you could leave at 3 o'clock. People earned that and then took it, but it was never recorded properly as a 1 to 1.5 ratio, in the sense of for every hour of compensatory time, you should be able to take an hour and a half of paid leave. So, and if it isn't used within 45 days, in fact, the employee is supposed to be paid what they would have been paid. So there's a bunch of half hours and things like that that should have been paid to the employees there. Similarly, for the Council on Aging, you had employees working various events at the Council on Aging, the shredded days, for instance, the Thanksgiving meal distribution, and they again had compensatory time earned, but it wasn't properly allocated or recorded, and so we'd be paying them in addition, just as for the planning and building office. Total is about $3,800 that we pay. I'll have to go to the Finance Committee to get the appropriation necessarily to cover these costs. The money's not in the individual department budgets at this point. but it does require approval by the board because you're the ones who signed the contract and therefore have to agree to any settlements.
Okay, any further discussion? Anyone?
What are we doing in the future to make sure this doesn't happen again?
Well, taking a piece, the town clerk's office is gonna work overtime. If, it's necessary, for instance, for the staff to go to a town meeting, if they have to work a Saturday or a Tuesday election day, we're just gonna make, working with the department head, working with the town accountant's office, will make sure that the overtime is properly calculated and paid. For building and planning and council on aging, we're gonna work with the department heads because right now, there is no overtime in their budgets. So, and the thing is that the compensatory time is an option. And we cannot require an employee to take compensatory time. It's their option. They have to say yes, the department head has to say yes. What we're gonna have to do is have a discussion with the department heads and say, either you're gonna have to request the overtime, the appropriation, the funding necessary to cover overtime, or you're gonna have to not have these people work overtime. In that, for instance, if the planning board is going past 8 o'clock, we'll have to tell the planning board, at 8 o'clock, these people, they're out. Not just out of the planning board room, because they may have to clean up and everything like that. They may need to leave at 7:45 out of that meeting to get out of the building at 8. Similarly, for the council on aging, if Nancy does not have the overtime in her budget, that she can certainly not require people to attend these events. Now, if these individuals want to volunteer, and it's clear that they're volunteering, and that the department head has said, you are not required to come to this event, they can volunteer for free, that's not a problem. But it needs to be very, very clear that that's what they're doing. If she's gonna require them, she's gonna have to have the money in the overtime budget or in her overall budget, department budget, to cover that.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, motion's made, seconded, all in favor?
Right,
Aye.
that's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Announcements? You got anything? Okay. Charlie, you have anything else to add?
Nothing new.
Sounds good. Board discussion?
A couple of things on the bicentennial, the next two events, even though we will be back in next Monday on April 17th, but on April 22nd, from 6:30 to 8 o'clock, right across here at St. John's, the Evangelist Church, they're going to have an evening of stories, music, and dessert, talking about the history of the East Bridgewater churches. It's all being done by the clergy of each of those churches, and for those of you that have heard the name Reverend Rich, you may be getting some background on Reverend Rich. On April 25th, which is the following Tuesday at 7 o'clock, down at the center at Sachem Rock, we have author Michael Toggius, who is going to be talking about the King Philip's War, history and legacy of America's Forgotten War, of which East Bridgewater did have a part in that war, so it appears to be very interesting in the making. That is it, Mr. Chairman.
Great, thank you. I'd entertain a motion, adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
See you Monday.
Thanks, everybody.